Well, let's do it.
All right.
East Tennessee Zone, WDVX. Hey out there, Radio Land. It's your good buddy Colton Zenni. And here we are at Yeehaw Brewing Company. It's WDVX Summer Nights. And I am with Virginia's, one of the powerhouses in fiddle playing today. And in the world of bluegrass today, it's Bronwyn Keith Hines, who today is touring just as Bronwyn. And, well, first thing I want to say is thanks for hanging out with me for a little bit this afternoon, and it is great to meet you.
Yeah, this is awesome.
We're super excited to have you here as you guys have been on the road on this summer tour. Well, when did summer tour kick off?
Man, I felt like summer tour kicked off in January, but we've just been going nonstop kind of this whole year.
So it's been constantly on the road. And I want to learn a little bit about the outfit of players that you have playing with you and backing you up. So tell me about the band and assembling this band. Is this the first time you're playing with this group? And what was it like putting the band together?
Yeah, it's been an interesting process. You know, kind of last year I was starting to do my own gigs in the second half of last year, but I didn't really have enough gigs to lock down a band. And I was still feeling out different players and just seeing like who I connected with.
Right.
But starting this year, it's been a solid lineup of these cats, and it's been amazing. It's Tristan Scroggins on the mandolin, Frank Evans on the banjo, Grant Dresnick on the guitar, and Larry Cook on the bass. And so we've been playing together as a unit since January, and it's just cool to feel the music like evolving and tightening. You know, you've got the same group of people every weekend. You're not like starting afresh and like trying to show somebody how the song goes. Everyone knows how the song goes. Now you can like work up a cool transition to another song, or like extend the jam, or like do something different because you know you've got a bass line, you know. So
you've felt that chemistry start to build with these players.
Yeah.
I've always thought it's interesting, even with professional and highly talented players, still, you know, just getting together and playing when you don't know each other and you don't know each other's tendencies, it's not the same as just building chemistry on the road.
Totally.
How important is that?
I think it's super important. Yeah, I mean, it's important to know, well, you know, to have people know the music, but just also have the history of playing the music together, you know, and you can collectively remember what happened a week ago, and like, you know, that cool thing that, you know, and I don't know, and you can just kind of talk about it in the car, and it gets more and more kind of comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to, of course, you have a new record coming out, and we absolutely want to talk about that. But before we get into that, I think we want to learn a little bit more about you as a player and about your life in music. So just briefly, talk to us about your earliest life in music. What is some of the first types of music that reached out and grabbed you, and what are some of your earliest memories of music and experiences with it?
Yeah, I started, you know, I've actually been playing fiddle longer than I can remember. It's like literally always been playing it, but I started when I was 3, and I guess I saw some girls busking on the street when I was 3 and asked my dad for fiddle lessons. And I've got a lot of Irish family. Half of my family is from Ireland, so I think that was kind of the first like traditional fiddle style I was just kind of exposed to. So that's kind of what I started with, and I played Irish fiddle kind of through like being a teenager. And when I was a teenager, my family moved to Virginia. We were up in Vermont. Moved down to Virginia, and I started going to these fiddle camps, and that's where I heard bluegrass, you know, and I was really drawn to the improvisational element of it and just like the bluesy attitude, I guess. And so when I was a teenager, that's kind of when I started messing around with bluegrass.
It feels like bluegrass does have an attitude and an aesthetic that is sort of a departure from old time music at large, you know. And when you think of, you know, Bill Monroe and Jimmy Martin and those guys, I mean, they came in dudded up and big hats, and they did have an attitude about them that was, I think, trying to think of the word, it had a bit more gravitas to it than I think some of the old time stuff.
Well, it's a performance music, you know, and like Irish music is a dance music first and foremost, you know. It's like that's where its roots are, and so that I think that just kind of creates a different aesthetic right off the bat. So if you're trying to be, in my mind, if you're trying to play traditional Irish music, it's, you know, you're going for a different thing than if you're playing bluegrass.
That's a really interesting point, the difference in a performance music and a dancing music.
Right, it's like at the core of it, it's different, you know?
So when you were growing up then, was fiddle music, Irish fiddle music, and old time stuff sort of the center of your musical world, or were you like listening to other stuff, or?
It was definitely the center. Like we had a few other CDs at the house, but like 95% of it was fiddle music, and then we had like a Grateful Dead CD and a Fish CD and like a Tchaikovsky CD. And,
Okay.
like, that was about it, you know. So I wasn't listening to a lot of pop music or rock at the time. You know, I think as I got older, I started getting more into that kind of stuff as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So what was it that you moved from Vermont to Virginia, two
Yeah.
V states?
Yeah.
And you start fiddling in competitions and conventions and things like that.
Yeah.
And it's bluegrass. Of course, there's always old time jams. But what piqued your attention about the bluegrass? You had mentioned the attitude and sort of the style, but what was it that made you say, well, maybe I kind of want to start playing a little bit more bluegrass than just this old time fiddle playing?
You know, I think I was like casually interested in it as a teenager, but it wasn't until I decided to go to Berklee for college up in Boston, Berklee College of Music, and they had this American Roots music program that started the year I started going to college. And I think my idea when I went there, like I didn't think I was going to become a bluegrass fiddler. I liked it, but I was going to be like a Celtic jazz fiddler. I was going to like go learn jazz.
Interesting.
And like that was like my idea of what my musical path was. But then I got to Berklee, and this American Roots music program had started that year, and I think they'd done a big outreach to kind of get the cream of the crop of like a lot of the best kids of that age. So like Sierra Hull was there, Alex Hargraves, Mike Barnett,
yeah.
Sam Grisman, Dom, Leslie, all my Golden Highway bandmates. Molly was there, and suddenly I was just surrounded by like all these amazing people, and they were all my friends, and I was like, oh, like I think I want to play bluegrass. Like I want to do what you guys are doing. Like that looks like so much fun. So I just kind of got swept up in it,
Right on. I mean, what an outstanding sort of a who's who, right? Of people to be like, oh wow.
I think we all kind of took it for granted. At least everyone I've talked to about that period was kind of like, yeah. In hindsight, like it was an amazing time to be in Boston, and I don't think any of us picked up on, we knew it was cool, but we were like, oh, this is just like normal, I guess.
Well, I think about that sort of an amazing time to be in Boston at Berklee with that group, and it seems like either directly or indirectly or some spectrum in between, that group has played no small role in making it a great time to be in bluegrass today.
Feels like it, yeah.
Well, talk about that, kind of coming from the inside. It feels like from my perspective that, bluegrass is really having a moment with that's really driven by outstanding young players.
Yeah, and I think it's like this intersection of like social media, the rise of social media, and like also the rise of roots music in colleges. Like there are a lot of colleges now that have bluegrass and roots music programs, and I feel like that has really changed in the last 15 years. So sort of those two things, I feel like, the internet giving people, kids just so much more access to what's out there, and that spurs on greatness, right? A kid anywhere can see the best of the best playing online and be like, oh, I guess I need to sound like that, and they work extra hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's maybe kind of those two things. I'm sure there's other elements at work, but it definitely
I
part of it.
certainly see that. And of course, we live in a social media world where it's easy to get connected with others and see what they're doing. Circling back to the music a bit, what I think is interesting, both about, old-time Celtic music, Irish fiddle music, and bluegrass or traditional bluegrass, is that it feels like they can both sort of be something of a rigid idiom in terms of music. Like, there's a real sense of how it is supposed to be played.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a real sense of playing it straight or playing it, as written or as intended.
Yeah.
And it feels like with today's sort of crop of players, there is all the reverence of the tradition, but maybe not so much of the rigidity in the playing. It feels like there's maybe a little bit more musical exploration going on, or that's really bubbling up in the bluegrass music or the grassy music that's bubbling to the top today. Do you see that sort of willingness to go beyond the tradition with today's scene and today's players?
Definitely, but I would counter that. I feel like that spirit has kind of always been in bluegrass, and there's always been people that have been pushing the boundaries,
Certainly.
you know, and I feel like that's almost like part of bluegrass, you know, and like, you know, the Osborne brothers having drums, the Newgrass Revival
Right.
coming in and having electric
bass,
and, you
right.
know, Hot Rise and
Mm-hmm.
and then,
Yes,
you know,
and
the
Bush
whole,
and Grissman.
right, and the kind of the all-star cast of like, you know, Tony Rice and Bela Fleck and like Strength in Numbers and like that kind of stuff. Like I feel like it's like we're just like the last you know, we're building on all that stuff
Yeah.
that they've all done, and I love that now there's, you know, now it's kind of getting even opened wider towards the jamming side of things, right? Like the jamgrass thing is kind of the next big frontier, it feels like, and fans are getting pulled in from the Grateful Dead and from Fish, and,
Absolutely.
you know, Widespread Panic and all these bands, and I love that, and I've had a lot of fun. You know, I love lots of kinds of music, and I most of all just like expressing myself, and you know, it's fun to express yourself in the confines of a bluegrass solo of 8 or 16 bars, but it's also fun to get to play for a little longer, right? And like learn how to take a solo that's going to take 2 minutes or 5 minutes. Like, how do you do that? That's a whole different skill, and it's really fun to explore.
Talk to me about your experience playing in that sort of way when really there starts to become an emphasis on jamming things out, playing for longer, maybe taking things in a direction that takes a little longer to get to. You're not just playing for 8 or 16 bars.
Yeah.
Did that come naturally to you?
I feel like it's taken a little while to like learn how to do that, like kind of like anything, you know. I feel like my first experiences with that have been kind of in the last couple years, you know, playing with Golden Highway, and I've been able to do a lot of stuff with Leftover Salmon as well, a lot of sitting in and different kind of collaborations, and you know, they're a true jamgrass band, you know, and so, but you know, I think that just kind of the more I do it, the more I kind of learn what works, and you know, you kind of try something, and I feel like it's kind of like a yes and environment, you know, like it's just like whatever you do is the right thing because you did it in that moment.
Right.
Or like that's the attitude, at least. I'm sure, you know, there's degrees of like, you know, it can be better or worse, obviously, but like it's, you know, you're just kind of like trying to be like yes and.
Yeah, it sounds like there's such a flexibility to try something new that you maybe haven't tried before, or a transition between songs or a segue that you haven't tried before.
Totally.
And it seems like from the audience perspective, like that is what really gives so many audience members a kick.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I mean, you know, people have their favorite songs or whatever, and it's the thing that happens that you didn't expect. That's always kind of exciting, right? Or,
right.
Yeah.
And it's even a situation to where, you know, the audience will like to see a mistake, or, you know, something that doesn't quite get off the ground. The band tried something and, you know, they just laugh it off.
Oh, the audience loves it when you mess it up. That's their favorite part. Something goes wrong and they're thrilled. No, but seriously, it's like, yeah, you know, somebody breaks a string or whatever, and you have to kind of do something different for a while to cover it. It's interesting, you know?
Well, I think it adds a real human element. And I think that
Totally.
there's a lot of music, and especially live music events or productions, to where everything is so curated that there's no mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and if there
are, then they're bad.
Yeah,
Because like they don't know how to handle them.
Right.
Right? Like if there's tracks involved or something.
Absolutely, but
Yeah.
it seems like, you know, when you have a band, right? But
Yeah.
in bluegrass, and it's not just bluegrass, but we're talking about bluegrass, so
Yeah.
it seems like, you know, it's okay if there's, you know, the audience doesn't expect things to be choreographed perfectly and exactly the same, note for note, night after night, just
Yeah.
like the record.
Totally.
How's that feel as a player?
It's exciting, and I feel like the more, you know, I've been in musical situations where it was much more, you know, different rigid situations versus more flexible ones, and I feel like it's easy to get in a trap of when you're in the rigid situation, you're like, oh, like it has to be like this, like well, something could go wrong if it wasn't, you know, and then, but like the more I push myself to be more flexible, I think then I get more comfortable with it, and then you just kind of like relax, and you realize that it's all good, like,
Right.
you know, that's kind of the beauty of it. And I think, yeah, it's funny the different mindsets you can find yourself in.
I know that you've, at this point in your career, had experiences with a number of different outfits and sort of in a number of phases of your career that has given you opportunity to gain all kinds of experience with all of that and more. And I want to learn a little bit about, so take us from, you're at Berkeley and you're learning and you're with an incredible group, and you said that Molly and the Golden Highway folks were there. So is that how you got introduced to Molly and got going in Golden Highway?
No, actually, I mean, that's where I met Golden Highway and Molly and everybody there, except for Shelby, but Shelby was around Boston because she was in Delamay at the time, but that's not when Golden Highway got started. That was 7 or 8 years, I can't even do math, but that was many years before Golden Highway. So after Berkeley, I kind of stuck around Boston, like my community was there, I was kind of settled there, and I started a band called Mile 12. That was kind of like a democratic bluegrass band. Like everybody had to say, we wanted to be like the infamous String Dusters.
Okay,
like
right.
Our heroes, so that band, we wrote our own songs and stuff, and that band lasted about 7 years. And at that point, I'd moved to Nashville, and some band members wanted to kind of slow down and have children and stuff, and like I didn't want to do that. And I feel like that was kind of right around the time that Molly asked me to join Golden Highway. So it was a hard decision, definitely, to like leave a thing that I'd kind of established, but it was also kind of like, well, maybe this has run its course, and I was so excited about playing with Molly and everybody she had in the band, so it just kind of felt like a logical like segue. So then the Golden Highway thing lasted from 2022 to I guess the middle of last year, so 3.5 years, and it was awesome. It was like some of the best times of my life, best friends I've made. It was really cool. But, Molly likes a lot of different kinds of music and kind of always has done different styles, so she, gave us a good heads up that she was going to do this new record, and it wasn't going to be bluegrass, and, might come back to Golden Highway at some point, but like this was the direction. And that was right when my last record got nominated for a Grammy. And
yes.
It was kind of like, it was like really encouraging to me. And I was kind of like, well, this kind of feels like maybe there's a sign to maybe try my own thing. Like if there was ever going to be a time, it would be now. So,
right. So then you jump into putting this band together.
Yeah, and it took about a year. So that was kind of last year was, wrapping up the Golden Highway thing and trying out different players, starting to just tour and get a team together, get a booking agent,
right.
and buy a van, just like kind of trying to like lay the groundwork. And it feels like this year we can kind of like jump head into it.
Head into it. It has absolutely been, as you guys have been just road dogging it, and are really, emerging sort of in the scene at large as a force. And of course, we're having a conversation today ahead of your new album, Sticks and Stones.
Yeah, Rattlin Bones.
Rattlin Bones, and Sticks and Stones was the first single off the new album.
It's all connected.
Right. So tell us about the new record. The first two singles, Sticks and Stones, which is, again, the single and not the name of the record, and Johnny Ray are out now.
Yeah.
But tell us about the sound of the record and what can folks be looking forward to with this thing.
Well, I feel like my whole goal around this record was I wanted to write a record that would be fun to play live, basically. I wanted to, what kind of songs would I want for my set? And that was basically, I've never really written songs before, but I was really inspired to write for this album. And I was kind of like, well, I should have my own songs if I'm gonna do my own thing. I would like to write my own stuff.
Yeah.
So just trying to have a collection of music that would be fun for a live set, and when we were arranging it in the studio, one thing I was trying to keep in mind was trying to have spaces in the songs that could stretch or shrink depending on the night, or like just moments of freedom,
right.
And like have these songs be a little bit flexible, so they can change how they need to. In the live setting. Yeah, it's been a really cool experience, writing a whole album. I did a lot of co-writing with people in Nashville. There's, so many talented co-writers, and I wrote about half the album with Pat McLaughlin, who's an amazing songwriter.
Absolutely.
He used to work with John Prine.
Yes.
And, he's just like a legend. So very lucky to get to work with him. And I wrote a couple songs with Melody Walker, who's written a lot with Molly. And yeah.
What a sort of crash course to writing, it sounds like.
Yeah, definitely.
So I always like to talk to musicians and especially writers about, and especially those in the Nashville scene.
Yeah.
Has your experience with writing been the sort of Nashville style? It's on the calendar Thursday at 3. We will be having a writing session from 3 until 4:30, and it's sort of defined on the calendar writing session. I know some people quite like that, and others really struggle to do it that way.
I think it's been maybe a little bit more casual than that. I only did a couple writing sessions like down on Music Row. Most of them were just like at my house or at somebody else's house, and we'd have a start time, but we wouldn't have like an end time.
Right. It's not like block this off on your calendar.
No, it'd be just like, all right, like let's get together at 11 a.m. and see what happens, And yeah, but I kind of had a list of like little ideas and starts of songs or whatever, and I felt like, and it seems like most people I wrote with also would have those kind of lists, and it would be, give you something to start with, so you're not just staring at each other.
Right, you've got some ideas, something to come into it with.
Yeah.
Some folks, when they put out a record, they will have songs that they were writing in the studio, and then they'll have songs on the same record that they wrote 10 years ago. What range? I guess in what range were these songs written? Did you write all the songs within a year, or do you have some that, did you have some that you had been sitting on?
These were all written within a year. Yeah, I think the earliest one was probably written exactly about within a year. So that's kind of cool, It's like definitely a snapshot of where my brain is at in where it was in 2025,
Well, building off of that, do you feel like that helped you sort of write a cohesive bit of material and songs that really worked well together because they were coming out? It's almost like stream of consciousness.
I think so. I hope so. There's definitely like a variety of topics on this record, but I think if there was a cohesive, through line, it would be like kind of just like wanderlust, just like adventure. I wanted to make kind of a fun album that you'd want to blast on your radio and be a good road trip album. So it's a lot of traveling songs and road songs, and then there's the occasional murder ballad or love song or other things.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about what is my favorite of the two singles that are out now, Johnny Ray, which I just am digging. Just talk to us a little bit about that tune and cutting that tune. I think it has this sound to it that is driving and almost a bit ominous, right? So talk to us about the tune, and there's a story behind it. You don't want to give it all away, but talk to us a bit about Johnny Ray.
Yeah, that was one of the ones I wrote with Pat, and for that song, Pat was the one who came with the idea that day, and but it just kind of ended up being, we tossed it back and forth for a while. That song took about a month to write. We worked on it one day and then kind of gave up on it. I'm not sure if he liked where it was going, but then I kept writing. I wrote the first verse or another verse for it, and I was like, oh, we got to get back to this. And then he got excited that I'd written the first verse, and then he kind of came up with a different melody and groove for it. And then I was like, oh, that's really good. We got to keep going with that. And so we kind of kept batting it back and forth, and it turned out sort of it's got elements of a lot of people in probably both of our lives, but yeah, I really like that song too.
Well, you mentioned blasting it loud on the radio, and we have been doing just that.
Aw, thanks.
What sort of sonically is there any kind of things that you were tapping into kind of specifically for the record? Are there pop or rock or whatever sounds on it? Were you listening to anything in particular while you were writing and cutting this thing?
I think probably my biggest influence for this record is those Sturgill Simpson Cut and Grass records.
Oh yeah.
I love those records. I love his songwriting. I'm a big Sturge fan, but I love those Bluegrass records in particular, and how he was able to kind of I think he has said that he kind of wrote those songs as Bluegrass songs, and maybe, then they got, changed, but I ended up using his drummer, Miles Miller, on about half of the record, and it was really, really cool to just hear his groove on that stuff, because it's just such a unmistakable sound. So to hear his groove on my stuff, and he was just playing snare on the whole thing. It was like no other drum sounds, but like, you know, he just fits so perfectly into the bluegrass groove. So I don't know. I listen to a lot of like outlaw country as well, so I definitely was listening to a lot of that stuff and drawing on that for songwriting ideas. And
So
like,
a touch of that
groove.
flavor in there.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot during this conversation about various sub-genres, you know, whether it's traditional bluegrass or progressive bluegrass or jam grass or indie bluegrass or whatever. What is this record?
Oh man, I mean, I guess I don't know. I mean, probably indie bluegrass might be a good way to put it. You know, I don't know if, yeah, it's like, are the jams long enough to call it jam grass? I don't know. There are some, you know, it's a 13. I was trying to fit 13 songs on a vinyl, so it's like the songs aren't that long, but then, yeah, I don't know. And it's not really. I mean, there's elements of traditional, but you know, it's a modern bluegrass record. For sure.
I had heard in a previous interview that you had done on the note of, you know, oh, is it indie bluegrass? Is it traditional bluegrass? Is it jam grass? And I think that what you said that jumped out to me is you said, well, really the most important question is it good?
Oh yeah, totally.
Right.
Totally.
So when you're hearing music at large, what are indicators that it is good?
I don't know. That's such a subjective question. I mean,
to you.
Yeah, no, of course. But even to me, I'm not sure if I can tell you what I'm gonna like until I hear it, and it turns me on. I'm just like, oh, I'm obsessed with that. And you know, and I think maybe some things are like, you know, authenticity. You know, that's definitely gonna be something that I'm drawn to. But other than that, like, I don't even know. There's just certain things that grab you, you know?
Does that make the process of cutting a record kind of exciting when you're like, you know, who knows what it might be?
Yeah, and it's scary because, like, you come in with these songs and you're like, I think the songs are good. Like, I could imagine them being good, but like, and then you just hope the session goes good, and you hope the magic happens, and yeah, but then it's like incredibly exciting when the magic does happen, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is my record now.
Well, tell everybody out there in Radio Land when the magic is going to happen with the new record and when they can look forward to its release. And if I'm not mistaken, in between now and then, there's another single coming out too, right?
That is true. Yeah, we've got another single coming out July 31st, I believe, whatever the last Friday of the month is. And then the whole record is coming out August 14th. So it's just around the corner. I'm thrilled to get it out. I really believe in it, and I love all the songs on there, and I hope people like it.
Well, we are so excited for it at WDVX. Like I said, we've been just spinning the miles out of the two singles that are out now. Where can folks connect with you? Where can they learn where to see you on tour? Where can they find more of your music?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm on all the streaming platforms. They can find me on Instagram and, you know, TikTok and Facebook, and on my website, which is bronwynfiddle.com.
Well, Bronwyn, thanks so much for hanging out with me here. Again, we're at Yeehaw Brewing Company. It's WDVX Summer Nights. Bronwyn will be playing. The show is being opened up by East Tennessee's very own The Naughty Knots. And it's going to be a really big time again. Thanks for hanging out with me. And we are so excited for the new record.
Man, it's great talking to you. Thanks for having me here.